At 2:45 p.m. local time in the Eastern Pacific, the sea is open and visibility is perfect. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch team begins its shift the same way it always does. A calm radar sweep, steady returns, and nothing out of the ordinary. The USS Sampson is following a routine patrol route through a familiar transit corridor. No tension, no alarms, just disciplined monitoring across a vast stretch of ocean. Then one contact starts behaving differently. At first, it is almost easy to miss. A small surface track sitting low in the water and moving close to the wave tops. But its acceleration does not resemble normal commercial traffic. It is not gradual. It is sudden and aggressive, going from slow movement to full speed in seconds. The radar operator marks it immediately. Long range, stable bearing, speed rising fast. Within moments, more warning signs begin to appear. No AIS signal, no registered call sign, no response to the first bridge-to-bridge radio calls. This contact is not just moving quickly. It is moving with purpose, cutting straight through a corridor already known for long-distance illegal transport activity. Inside CIC, the atmosphere changes, displays refresh, sensors narrow their attention. Electro-optical systems begin shifting toward the vessel's projected path. Then visual confirmation arrives. On the forward camera feed, dark objects can be seen flying off the stern of the vessel, one after another, compact packages bouncing across the surface before vanishing beneath the swell. That is not fuel. That is not gear. That is cargo being thrown overboard. Evidence. For half a second, the room falls silent. Not because anyone is confused, but because the picture is suddenly clear. Everyone in that space recognizes the pattern. Low profile, narrow hull, multiple high-powered outboard engines, a textbook go-fast boat, built for one purpose and one purpose only. The vessel keeps accelerating, cutting a bright white wake through the blue water. It is trying to outrun detection. It is trying to outrun authority. But that moment has already passed. On the bridge, the commanding officer does not need to raise his voice. The data says everything. A stateless vessel, no compliance, active disposal of illegal cargo, clear signs of unlawful trafficking in international waters. This is no longer simple observation. This is an interdiction. The order comes down sharp and controlled. Set condition 3, prepare the helo. Across the ship, the response is immediate. Hatches secure, stations manned. The destroyer itself does not need to make a dramatic move. Its role now is command, control, and total awareness of the battle space. On the flight deck, the helicopter crew is already in motion. Rotor blades unfold. Fuel lines come free. Systems power up. There is no panic, no wasted movement. Just precision built through repetition. Back in CIC, the radar picture is now solid. Speed confirmed. Heading confirmed. The vessel is running flat out, but it is trapped by distance and basic physics. Out here, the open ocean offers no cover, no terrain, and nowhere to hide. Then more debris hits the water behind the suspect boat. More cargo, more urgently this time. Less controlled? That says everything. They know they have been spotted. They are trying to buy speed by shedding weight, trying to buy time by throwing away evidence. They will get neither. At 2:48 p.m., the flight deck reports green. The helicopter lifts cleanly from the deck and banks toward the intercept course, flying low over the water. From the air, the ocean becomes unforgiving. Every wake is visible, every turn stands out, every attempt to maneuver is exposed. The destroyer feeds real-time targeting data straight to the aircraft. Range, bearing, speed, constant updates. This is not a wild chase. It is a controlled convergence. Below, the go-fast boat keeps running. Above, the helicopter closes rapidly, and for the crew of that small vessel, still tossing millions of dollars worth of cargo into the sea, one reality is becoming impossible to ignore. There is no shoreline ahead, no safe harbor behind, no escape route left unnoticed. What started as a routine patrol has now crossed the line from surveillance to direct action, and the next phase is already underway. At 2:49 p.m. local time, the MH-60R Seahawk drops lower and picks up speed, its blades cutting through the dense Pacific air. From 200 feet above the surface, the ocean turns into a grid of movement. Wakes, vectors, patterns, intent. Nothing stays hidden from this height, especially not a boat running at maximum speed. The aircraft's forward-looking infrared locks on almost instantly. The engines below are running hot, pushed hard beyond efficient limits. On the display, the suspect craft burns bright against the cooler water, a narrow hull skimming over the swell as if it is barely touching the sea. Then the boat makes its next move, a hard turn to port. Then starboard, a violent zigzag meant to disrupt the intercept angle. It is a familiar tactic. force the aircraft to overshoot, create uncertainty, buy a few more seconds, and in open water, seconds matter when your goal is to disappear. But this helicopter was not launched to bluff. From the cabin door, the crew has a full view. The door gunners follow every movement while the sensors maintain a constant lock. The Seahawk is not just observing, it is documenting everything. Every turn, every package dumped, every effort to escape. The pilot takes the aircraft even lower, skimming just above the wave tops. Rotor wash throws white spray into the air. The sound alone is unmistakable, a deep mechanical roar rolling across the water. The message is clear. You have been found. The helicopter makes its first pass along the vessel's side, offset but undeniably close. Over open frequencies, the warning is broadcast, calm and unmistakable. Unidentified vessel, you are operating in international waters. Heave to immediately. There is no reply, no radio call, no reduction in speed, no sign of compliance. Instead, even more cargo goes overboard. This time it is frantic and careless. One package clips the hull as it falls and breaks apart on impact. A burst of white spray flashes against the blue water. Even without testing, the meaning is obvious. The situation has just escalated. From above, the Seahawk shifts position once more, tightening the intercept. It stays just off the stern quarter, close enough that every person on that boat knows they are being watched, close enough that their only remaining option is to keep running in a straight line. But that will not save them. Back aboard the destroyer, the Combat Information Center follows every second in real time. The gap is shrinking. The speed difference is working in the aircraft's favor. The geometry is completely one-sided. The next order from the bridge is exact. Escalate warnings. The Seahawk banks left and drops again. This time, the door gunner leans out. Weapon aimed not at the people on board, but at the water ahead of the bow. A short burst rips across the surface, impacting about 10 meters off the starboard side of the boat. Tall plumes of spray explode upward. The effect is immediate. This is not an exercise. This is not a distant watch. This is a lawful order to stop, but the vessel still does not comply. Instead, it surges ahead, engines screaming, wake spreading wider. The helmsman pushes every bit of power the motors have left. The entire hull visibly shudders under the strain. This is no longer a calculated escape. It is panic. Inside the helicopter, no one wastes words. They do not need to. The warning stage is over. The pilot brings the Seahawk around again, tighter this time, lower, slower, closer. Now the stern of the vessel fills the view. 3 exposed outboard engines, unprotected, vulnerable. Back on the destroyer, the commanding officer watches the live feed. Every requirement has now been met. Active evasion, refusal to comply, destruction of evidence, hazard to safe navigation. The authorization is given. The authorization is simple and precise. Disable the engines. The helicopter slides into position. The gunner steadies his aim. There is no hesitation and no unnecessary force, only controlled precision. A short burst breaks the silence. Rounds strike the outboard motors. One engine sparks violently. Another sputters, coughs, and then goes silent. Smoke rises quickly as the vessel jerks sharply to one side. Its speed collapses almost instantly. The wide wake fades. Water begins closing in around the hull. Within seconds, the chase is over. The go-fast boat slows until it drifts helplessly, dead in the water, smoke curling from the stern. Then hands appear above the deck, raised high, empty. From above, the Seahawk holds its position, circling calmly. No more warning shots, no sudden movement. The vessel has stopped. For the first time since 2:45 p.m., the tension begins to ease. Not because anyone showed mercy, but because control has been firmly established. The next stage is no longer about speed or firepower. Now it is about boarding, collecting evidence, and enforcing the law. And it is already moving into place. At 3:01 p.m. local time, the disabled vessel drifts quietly on the Pacific. Its engines are ruined, the smoke fading into the warm air. Above it, the Seahawk continues a steady orbit, sensors locked and cameras recording everything. Nothing moves without being seen. On the deck below, the crew of the go-fast boat no longer tries to run. They kneel with their hands raised, eyes fixed upward. The adrenaline that fueled the escape attempt is gone. What remains is exposure. Out here, the open ocean offers nowhere to hide. Along the port side of the USS Sampson, 2 RHIBs splash into the water. Their engines roar as they peel away from the destroyer, racing toward the disabled craft. The transition is smooth and practiced. Air control to surface control, surveillance to custody. This is where the mission shifts. Weapons are still present, but they are no longer the center of attention. Authority now comes from procedure, training, and the rule of law. The RHIBs close the distance quickly, whitewakes tearing across the surface. A Coast Guard law enforcement detachment rides with the Navy boarding team, fully equipped, clearly identified, and legally authorized to take custody. This coordination was planned long before the helicopter ever lifted off. As the boats pull alongside, commands echo across the water. Firm, controlled, clear, hands visible, stay still, no sudden movements. The suspects respond immediately. No resistance, no hesitation. Two men, both in their 30s, sunburned and exhausted, kneel on the slick fiberglass deck. No weapons are visible. None are necessary. What surrounds them tells the real story. Floating nearby in the swell are tightly wrapped bundles. Dozens of them. Some are still intact. Others have split open after being thrown into the water. Each one is photographed, marked, and logged the moment it is recovered. The boarding team works with quiet efficiency. One sailor keeps watch, another secures the suspects. A third begins a careful safety inspection of the vessel. What they discover confirms everything. No flag, no registration, no radio, no life jackets, no navigation lights. This boat was never meant to return. A field test kit is opened aboard the RHIB. A small sample is taken from one of the soaked packages. Inside is a white powder. The testing strip changes color. Cocaine. The result is immediate and unmistakable. By the time the update reaches the destroyer, the recovery count has already begun. 47 bales are pulled from the water and the vessel itself. Roughly 3,400 pounds in total. Wholesale value estimated at around $58 million. In this type of operation, that is not just a shipment. That is a major loss. The suspects are secured and formally informed of their rights under maritime enforcement protocols. They remain silent. They do not need to say anything. The evidence speaks clearly enough. Under international maritime law, a vessel with no nationality, a stateless vessel, falls under United States jurisdiction when engaged in illegal activity on the high seas. With no registry claimed and no compliance with lawful orders, full authority transfers to the Coast Guard. Every step of the operation has been documented. Multiple cameras, multiple platforms, a complete record. There is nothing unclear about the situation. With the suspects secured, attention returns to the vessel itself. The damage is severe. The engines are destroyed. The hull is cracked along the keel. Fuel is leaking into the water. There is no bilge pump, no anchor, and no safe way to tow the damaged craft hundreds of miles across open ocean. At this point, the vessel is not just useless, it has become a hazard. A single rogue swell could turn that wreck into drifting debris, the kind that could cripple a cargo ship or tear open a fishing boat. Leaving it out there is not an option. The boarding officer makes it official. The vessel is unseaworthy. Controlled disposal is recommended. Back aboard the USS Sampson, the commanding officer acknowledges the report without hesitation. No debate, no delay. Log it. Prepare to scuttle. The seized cargo is transferred, tagged, sealed, and moved into secure storage. The detainees are escorted below deck. Medical checks are completed. Every step follows procedure exactly. What began at 2:45 p.m. as a single radar contact has now become a fully documented interdiction. Suspects detained, contraband recovered. Legal authority clearly established, but the operation still is not finished. The ocean does not keep souvenirs. Before the day ends, the final chapter will be written not with speed or gunfire, but with calm, deliberate finality. At 3:45 p.m. local time, the disabled vessel rides low in the water off the destroyer's port quarter, held in place by a single recovery line. Up close, the damage looks even worse than expected. The fiberglass is split open along the keel. Engine mounts are bent out of shape. A thin oil sheen spreads slowly across the surface. This boat is no longer evidence alone. It is now a hazard. Out here, hundreds of miles from shore, the ocean leaves no room for careless choices. An abandoned hull can drift for days, sometimes longer, until it crosses paths with something bigger. A merchant ship, a fishing trawler, a tanker moving through the night. If left afloat, it could put lives at risk long after the smugglers are gone. The Coast Guard officer aboard the destroyer makes the decision official. Unseaworthy, unsafe to tow, recommend disposal at sea. No one argues. This is not about spectacle. It is about maritime safety and responsibility. Preparation starts immediately. The boarding team strips away anything that can be recovered. Fuel cans come off. GPS mounts are removed. Loose equipment is taken aboard. The deck is cleared down to bare fiberglass. Nothing remains on board that does not need to be there. The recovered bales are already secured deep inside the destroyer. Every package has been logged. Every package has been sealed. The chain of custody remains intact from the moment of recovery to the evidence locker. That phase of the mission is complete. Now comes the part no one celebrates. A RHIB returns alongside carrying a compact charge package. Simple, controlled, precise. It is not meant to create a dramatic blast. Its only purpose is to open the hull below the waterline and let the sea do the rest. The charge is set near the stern, where the structure is already badly damaged. The timer is armed. The line is checked one final time. Through it all, the Seahawk remains overhead, circling quietly. Its cameras keep recording, not for show, but for accountability. At 4:12 p.m., the bridge receives the last report. Area clear, ready to scuttle. The commanding officer looks out across the water. No speech, no pause, just a calm acknowledgement. Proceed. The order is passed along. Detonate on mark, mark. There is no dramatic blast, no towering plume, only a dull, muffled thump, barely noticeable over the sound of the ship. A few seconds later, water starts pouring through the torn hull. The boat leans slightly, then more sharply. Air escapes from beneath the deck in hollow, uneven gulps. The stern drops first. The bow lifts for a moment, exposing chipped paint and scarred fiberglass, the final visible trace of a run that ended badly. Then it slips under. In less than a minute, the ocean closes over it completely. The surface smooths out. The oil sheen begins to disperse. No wreckage is left drifting behind. It is over. For the crew, the moment passes without ceremony. Watches resume. Logs are updated. Systems return to routine scanning. The destroyer does not linger. This was never about destruction. It was about closure. What remains now is the impact. $58 million worth of narcotics will never make it to shore. 2 traffickers will face prosecution. 1 smuggling route has just been exposed, mapped, and disrupted. Somewhere on land, an entire logistics chain has just been broken without warning. And none of it required missiles. None of it required headlines. None of it went beyond the force that was necessary. This is what disciplined maritime power looks like. A warship built to track far larger threats shifted roles in a matter of hours, becoming a surveillance platform, a command center, an aviation base, and a support vessel for law enforcement, all in the span of one afternoon. Now the ocean is quiet again. The radar picture is clean. No fast movers, no unusual returns, but the message has already traveled far beyond the horizon. Out here, speed does not guarantee safety. Distance does not guarantee anonymity. And when the United States Navy arrives, it does not move blindly. It intercepts. By 4:30 p.m. local time, the ocean has returned to its natural state, calm, vast, and indifferent. Where the go-fast boat once drifted, there is now only a faint disturbance in the water, already fading. On radar, the contact is gone. The track is closed. For the USS Sampson, the mission is no longer in its action phase, but it is not over. Below deck, the 2 detainees sit quietly under guard. Medical checks are complete. Rights have been read. No statements are given. They do not resist. They do not argue. There is nothing left to contest. Out here, the facts are final. In secure storage, 47 bales of narcotics are logged once more and checked again. Every package is weighed, sealed, and documented. The chain of custody is airtight. From the moment of recovery to the path toward prosecution, every step has been accounted for. This is the side of the operation most people never see. No sirens, no celebration, no raised voices, only procedure. And procedure is what turns an interdiction into a conviction. The destroyer resumes its patrol route. The destroyer moves on with engines steady and sensors wide open. Pacific Watch does not stop because one vessel has been intercepted. It exists because there are many more routes, many more schedules, and many more operations built on the old assumption that the open ocean is simply too vast to control. That assumption no longer holds. Pacific Watch is not about randomly hunting fast boats. It is a layered mission built on intelligence, surveillance, and constant presence, designed to disrupt smuggling lanes long before they ever get close to shore. Ships like the Sampson are not out here by accident. They are placed with purpose, guided by patterns, data, and years of operational analysis. The smugglers never saw the net around them. They only realized it was there when it tightened. For the crew, this was routine. Not because it was easy, but because it had been practiced again and again. Detect, identify, warn, escalate only when required. Use force with restraint, transfer authority, record every step. There are no shortcuts. That discipline matters even more in international waters, where every decision can later be examined in court, through diplomatic review, or in the public eye. That is why warnings are recorded. That is why force is measured. That is why every action is logged in real time. The goal is not intimidation, the goal is legitimacy. And legitimacy is often the strongest form of deterrence. Somewhere else in the Pacific, someone watching this corridor will notice what happened. Not because a vessel disappeared beneath the surface, but because it was located, because it was stopped cleanly. Because once the process began, there was no way out. Trafficking networks depend on probability. They depend on the belief that most runs will slip through, that enforcement will be slow, scattered, or too far away to matter. But every interception like this changes that equation. One lost shipment is not just lost money. It means trust starts to crack. Timelines fall apart. Routes are exposed. Crews get replaced. Risk has to be recalculated. And in that world, risk is everything. The USS Sampson was built to track submarines and counter-missile threats. On this day, it stopped a smuggling boat. Tomorrow, it could be tasked with something entirely different. That flexibility is not accidental. It is part of the doctrine. Modern naval operations demand ships that can move from combat readiness to law enforcement support without losing effectiveness. This operation showed exactly what that looks like in reality. No missiles launched, no lives lost. $58 million in illegal cargo removed from the supply chain. As the sun slowly drops toward the horizon, the destroyer stays on course. Watches rotate. Inside CIC, the rhythm settles back into its familiar pattern. Another stretch of patrol begins. Out here, the ocean never announces what comes next, but the Navy is already watching, and the message from this afternoon is unmistakable for anyone paying attention. If you move illegal cargo through international waters, speed will not save you, distance will not shield you. And once a U.S. Navy destroyer commits to the intercept, the ending is no longer yours to decide. The sea is vast, but it is not empty, and there is nowhere left to vanish.